Hello and welcome to My Two Cents, the show where I give my 2 cents on various topics. Today's topic, 2016, a year in review. And boy, it's been a long one. As I said, 2016 has been a long year. It's been a year of uncertainty, panic, arguments, and aggression. And while a lot of people have been willing to write off this year as a bad one, let's just take a closer look at what the year has to offer and see what it's brought to the table. First off, let's take a look at what my audience cares about the most. Sports. Let's just fast forward straight to August 5th. The first sporting event of the year I actually paid attention to. The Olympics. What a fucking shit show. Corruption, doping, and the Zika virus were all dominating the news before the games even started, opening the games on the worst note in recent memory. This sort of publicity is horrible, because those who don't follow the games will only hear about this information, and those who do follow the games closely will be sick to death about their passion being dragged through the mud. Let's look at the actual games now, and it went pretty well. The US topped the table once again, winning 46 gold and 121 medals total. Overall, the games went okay, with Michael Phelps being a highlight, as this year he was chosen to be a flag bearer for the US. So while the games might not have started off smooth, at least the athletes themselves performed with the most dignity possible, bringing respect to their nation and honoring them for generations. God damn it, Lochte. Just when the Olympics were heating up and the coverage was turning to the actual events, the story broke of a group of poor, innocent Olympic athletes attacked and robbed at the games, including the world's biggest number 2 swimmer, Ryan Lochte. Then it came out that they had faked the story. And then it came out that the group had faked the story just to get 15 minutes of fame. And of course, because karma's a bitch, they got their fame, and in the worst possible light, with their stupid lies being synonymous with the 2016 games. And now, thanks to this group of unbelievable fuck-ups, attention was moved away from the actual good athletes and onto these assholes. So in short, fuck you guys, especially Ryan Lochte. So despite the games themselves being filled with incredible athletes and matches, it was overshadowed by scandals, disease, and a bunch of other shit that we all focused more on than the athletes who have worked for years trying to get to this point in their careers. Great job, everybody. But besides the Olympics, the other major sporting event was America's favorite pastime, baseball. Usually this event passes without too much notice, and non-sports fans don't even really hear about it. However, something happened.
Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. Bryant, the Cubs winning the World Series. Bryant makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally won it all. 8-7-10.
I like to imagine this played out like an old sports movie. The Cubs were down and out for over a century, and then their new coach came in and gave them a big pep talk that won them the game. In fact, I'm pretty sure in 5 years' time, there's gonna be a movie out of the Cubs' win. Overall, sports was pretty so-so this year, with only 2 major events that affected the world besides sports fans, and one of them was thrashed by a group of dipshits and a bunch of other mistakes leading up to the event. But hey, at least New Zealand got this guy at the Paralympics.
I was the slowest kid at school forever.
Yeah, but no shit, you had no legs. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Not
And
surprising.
Not surprising, and they were wooden, so that never helped running like a pirate.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm gay, but... Well, politics was fun this year, wasn't it? Well, there was a bunch of other shit happening in the rest of the world. Hell, in New Zealand we had our Prime Minister of 8 years suddenly step down. For the purposes of this video, we're just gonna look at the big 2 events. The first, Brexit. Who the hell saw this coming? The UK's exit of the European Union seemed very sudden and apparently came out of nowhere, when the truth is it had been in the works for a while now. The trouble is, the media around the world, and even some news stations in the UK, just didn't seem to care about it, and as a result, nobody else even heard. This led to the pro-Brexit camp campaigning aggressively with no real competition, and ending in a result that surprised the world that didn't even think that something like this was on the cards. Now, some of you out there might be asking why the UK leaving the European Union is necessarily a bad thing. Well, there's a few reasons. First off, there's going to be a lot of paperwork. They're going to have to go through all of their laws and legislations they have in place just because they're a part of the EU and see what they want to keep and what they want to throw out. They're also going to have a lot of damage done to their trade industry, as well as they're going to have lost a lot of face with the rest of the world. Plus, the Brexit ended with their Prime Minister resigning, so yeah, not too great. Speaking of clusterfucks, let's move to the second topic. Yeah, that happened. Whether you're left or right wing, you gotta admit this presidential election was less than ideal. Essentially, the options came down to a corrupt politician or a corrupt businessman. Wonderful. How'd we end up here, anyway? Well, once again, let's blame the media. Hillary and Trump were very easy screen time for the news, in a year where they desperately needed it. What would sell better, an expose on Trump and a piece about potentially having a female president, or another speech by Ted Cruz or Bernie Sanders' latest campaign promises? These uninspiring yet probably better qualified candidates got overshadowed by the crazy, off-the-wall, unique candidates that the news pushed. And because of this, come election day, people believed they only really had two options, even when Bernie and Cruz were still in the running. Of course, there are other factors leading up to this. However, I do believe this to be the most plausible reason why we ended up in this unique situation. It's undeniable now that social media and the internet's power have made us lazy. We are more ready to believe any information given to us and unwilling to do the research ourselves. Because of this, easy-to-click news articles led us to believe that America had only two real options, even before the others were out of the race. And because of our pure laziness, we didn't dig any deeper. So yeah, politics. Absolute shit show. Let's just move on. Movies in 2016 were pretty decent. For every hit, there was a miss, as usual. I think the big standouts for uniqueness were Zootopia and Deadpool. And even then, you can argue Zootopia was old hat at this point, albeit very well done old hat. As for Deadpool, it proved that violent, swearing, immature humor can still rule the box office, which is more uncommon than you'd think nowadays. As for the industry itself, 2016 saw a large disconnect between critics and average moviegoers. While I don't think this is the last of this issue, hell, it seems these dumbasses are gonna revolt every time a shitty DC movie gets a low rating. 2016 is gonna be the year this started. So, that's fun. Speaking of not being allowed to have nice things, Beauty and the Beast's remake trailer came out, and it racked out the most views of any trailer in the first 24 hours. So it looks like we're gonna get a fuck ton more of these kind of bland, uncreative remake bullshits in the future. So that's fun. Overall, this year at the movies was pretty decent. Some standouts, some letdowns, but overall pretty good. Looking at the box office though, there's a bit of a depressing trend. Reboots and remakes are on top, just under whatever new Marvel, DC, or Star Wars movie came out. So yeah, doesn't bode too well for creativity. But hey, at least Leo got an Oscar. The music industry's always sucked. For every good song, there's 1,000 bad ones. Skip! Overall, this year was pretty okay. The conclusion of the Soul series, long-awaited Battlefield 1 and Dishonored 2, plus the violent surprise of a new Doom. The indie crowd had a lot to love, with the standout being the phenomenon that is Undertale. While technically it came out in 2015, it rose to fame in late 15 and early 2016. If we don't count it because of this technicality, I'll say the top 3 is Final Fantasy XV for breathing life into a dead horse, The Last Guardian simply for coming out, and Overwatch. Each of these games were defining parts of 2016 gaming, and they're gonna stick around for a long time. Owlboy should have made this list, but personally I haven't heard or played enough about it to comment on it, other than the artwork is beautiful. Now let's look at two of the biggest disappointments in gaming. Personally, I just feel bad for No Man's Sky. It was a game that suffered from severe overhype and being rushed out to meet fan demands. Yes, some of the blame is left on the developers, but I really can't feel bad for them for rushing out this game after literally receiving death threats from the first lot of delays. Thanks, Internet. While I'm willing to give the team behind No Man's Sky some slack, the same can't be said for the next game.
You kill an enemy, and you can absorb their power-ups, stuff that'll make you faster and stronger, and make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Fuck this bullshit. You all know the story. A former Mega Man developer decided to try and cash in on his legacy by crowdfunding what he claimed would be a spiritual successor to the series. Then, this year, after a few years of delays, disappointments, and public screw-ups, Mighty No. 9 launched, and it was mediocre. After nearly 2 years and $4 million of crowd-funded money, Mighty No. 9 gave us a very generic and dull experience that indie games have made on a budget of, a crumpled up 20. While it wasn't the worst game of the year, it was certainly one of the biggest flops in crowdfunding history, and almost beat No Man's Sky in terms of not living up to the hype. Luckily, the good far outweighed the bad in gaming this year, so it was a good one. And that's all I can say about that. Alright, this is it. This is the big reason everybody hates 2016. While it would be ridiculous to list all of the noticeable deaths of 2016, here's a list of all of the noticeable deaths of 2016. So that's fucking tragic. A lot of people are dismissive towards celebrity deaths. However, it does affect a lot of people. For one thing, the person may have been an inspiration to whoever's sad, like a musical idol or an actor someone looked up to. Finding out someone you aspired to be like has passed on is a sudden realization of one's own mortality. Plus, some people just get sad, you dismissive a-holes. However, can this large amount of deaths be blamed on the year? No, that's dumb. The simple answer is time makes a fool of all of us. In the 60s or 70s or so, celebrities were becoming a lot more common. Movies, music, and even basic TV led to more and more celebrities being discovered. And now, it's just catching up with us. The fact is, time has caught up, and the sad thing is, this is probably going to be the new normal. Well, this just got depressing. At the end of the day, 2016 was a year like any other, filled with ups and downs, tragedies and triumphs. The important thing to remember, everybody has had a different set of experiences. The best day of your life might have been the worst day in someone else's, and vice versa. It's important to remember that no matter how bad things get, there's always something good in the world. No matter what happens to you, everyone you know, or even your entire country, somewhere out there there's happiness, and one day it'll find you. Life is uncertain, but it's important to remember it's different. It's different to everybody. Every day, every moment, every year is different. So I hope you've all enjoyed the good within 2016, and I hope you've made it through the bad. For me, as I'm sure it was for many of you, 2016 was a very up and down year, with some of the worst moments of my life happening. But, despite this, 2016 gave me a year of YouTube, a year of making content and having fun while doing it, with all of you guys watching me. And for that, I want to thank you guys for helping me do this. And finally, I hope you all have a wonderful 2017. And in saying that, fuck you 2016.